Big changes rarely happen all at once. At Okami Kai Martial Arts and Fitness, they happen one class at a time.
Hi, I'm Scott.
And I'm Jennifer. We're the owners and instructors at Okami Kai.
Most parents come to us wanting the same things: confidence, focus, and resilience for their kids.
They want a place that feels supportive, not overwhelming. Somewhere their child can try, struggle a little, and learn to keep going.
We've been guiding families in our community for years, and we've seen real growth happen, one class at a time.
Kids learn to listen, try again, and work through challenges, one class at a time.
Parents get to watch confidence build through practice and not pressure, one class at a time.
Okami Kai Martial Arts and Fitness, one class at a time. Visit okamikai.com to get started.
My third cousin used to be a professional hunter who lived just outside of Ottawa. At one point in his life, he got into a war with a beaver. Not a metaphor, an actual war with an actual beaver. It started quite naturally. A dam shows up somewhere it shouldn't be. Water starts backing up. He goes out, tears it apart. Job done. Except the next time he checks, the dam is back. Not patched, not repaired, back, like he'd never even touched it. So he tears it apart again, and again it comes back. This goes on for a while. A grown man, someone who trapped for a living. He knew the bush better than most people know their own neighborhoods, and he was getting absolutely outworked by a 40-pound rodent. He tries everything. Annual demolition done properly more than once. It didn't matter. The beaver just kept building. The only thing that actually bought them any time at all was dynamite. That's right, blowing the dam up. That's where this story ends up. Explosives. And even then, I'll let you guess how long it stayed gone. I want you to hold on to that image, because this whole episode is about what that beaver was actually doing. Not the flooding, not the property damage. What it was doing over and over again that most of us would have quit long before. What's the thing in your life that keeps needing to be rebuilt? Not the thing you tried once and walked away from. The thing you genuinely care about that keeps getting knocked down faster than you can get it back up. Hold that thought. We're going to come back to it. So I want to sit on that beaver story for another minute before we move on, because I glossed over something. My relative, my third cousin, was a trapper. That's not a casual detail. This isn't someone who moved out from the city and got surprised by nature. This is someone who understood how animals behave. He understood what they're capable of and how they think. He spent his working life in that environment, and the beaver still had him beat. Think about what the actual experience of that must have felt like. You go out in the mud and the cold, probably more than once, and you pull that dam apart by hand. Sticks, branches, packed mud, the whole thing. It's not a small job. You walk back into the house, you've handled it. And then a few days later, or maybe less, you go back out and it's there again. Not half finished, there, like the last trip never happened. That's not just frustrating, that's the kind of thing that actually gets personal. Except here's the thing. It wasn't personal. Not even slightly. The beaver had no idea there was a conflict happening. There was just a dam that needed building, and it was going to be built. He eventually got to dynamite, which sounds extreme until you've spent enough time losing to a 40-pound animal that doesn't know it's supposed to give up. But here's the reframe I want you to carry through this entire episode. We tell this story as a story about a problem, a nuisance, a pest, but look at it from the outside, and what you're actually watching is an animal that had its work destroyed repeatedly by a capable and determined person. And every time he responded the same way, by getting back to work. For all we know, there was no discouragement, no crisis of confidence, no questioning about whether dam building was really right for him. Just the dam needed building, so it was built. And here's the thing about that beaver. Nobody was cheering it on. There was no highlight reel. No one was clapping when it dragged another branch into place at 2 a.m. It wasn't motivated. It was just built that way. Most people assume that the successful version of themselves feels different on the inside, more fired up, more motivated. And that's mostly a myth. Successful martial artists don't feel motivated every single day they walk into a dojo. Successful parents don't feel patient every single day. Successful business owners don't feel switched on every single day. Motivation is weather. Identity is climate. One is unpredictable and changes by the hour. The other is who you actually are underneath all of that. Systems and habits do the heavy lifting that motivation gets credit for. I'm a pretty big fan of James Clear. He wrote a book called Atomic Habits. And he's written more than a few times in blog posts and articles that people don't rise to the level of their goals. They fall to the level of their systems. And this is why personally I care more about a student who shows up on a Tuesday that they don't feel like training than whether they showed up on a day after a big grading or maybe a BJJ tournament win. The dam doesn't care how you feel about building it. It just needs to be built. My cousin didn't have an actual beaver problem. Not really. He had a root cause problem, and the beaver was just the visible symptom of it. In fitness, we often hear the complaint, I'm out of shape. But the actual issue underneath it is almost always inconsistency. It's not lack of information about how to get in shape. You're inconsistent with your workouts, you're inconsistent with your diet, and therefore you have a problem. In martial arts, we hear complaints like, I keep forgetting this kata, or I can't remember this basic, or this technique isn't working for me. And the actual issue there is a lack of repetition. In parenting, we get complaints like, my kid won't listen, when the actual issue could be inconsistent boundaries, or a kid who's emotionally maxed out, or a connection problem. Are you yelling from the kitchen to tell your child that dinner is ready, or are you actually going to their room and approaching them and saying dinner is ready? In business, the complaint for us could be retention or getting people interested to walk through the door, when the actual issue could be buried somewhere in how are we bringing them into class? How are we creating our culture? How are we communicating? So what's your complaint? What's your problem? What's the thing that keeps on returning for you? What's causing it to keep showing back up after you think you've already dealt with it? Every single time my cousin tore that dam apart, the beaver treated it as a Tuesday, not a tragedy. Just another day where the work needed to be done again. In martial arts, this could be when a student earns real confidence and then life hands them something humbling, like an injury or a tough class, maybe a competition loss, but then they rebuild. In fitness, it could be someone who gets strong, then maybe gets hurt, and has to rebuild from a lower point than they already were. In relationships, trust could take a hit for whatever reason, and the only way through it is rebuilding it by doing something deliberate and on purpose. In business, it could be a marketing push that falls flat. You could have a goal that you don't accomplish, but then you have to rebuild and start the next morning. In parenting, maybe you think you finally cracked the code on your kid, and then they hit a new stage of development and the code's useless again. Rebuilding isn't evidence that something went wrong. Rebuilding is the actual job. If you're not rebuilding something right now, you're either not paying attention or you've stopped trying things that matter. Here's something people get wrong about starting again. They think it means starting from zero, and it doesn't. A black belt coming back after a long layoff is not a beginner. Their body might be rusty, but the years of training didn't evaporate. A former athlete getting back into shape isn't starting from scratch, even if the scale or the mirror tries to convince them otherwise. A business owner climbing back from a bad stretch isn't back at square one. They're carrying every lesson that bad stretch taught them. Skills leave traces. The lessons stay, the character stays, the resilience stays. That beaver, every time it rebuilt that dam, probably built it a little smarter than the time before. It learned the property, it learned the weak points. Starting again isn't starting over. Right now, I just wanted to talk to the parents. Kids are always watching how the adults around them respond when something falls apart. And they pick up, often without anyone saying a word, how to handle frustration, how to handle failure, how to handle disappointment. A kid who watches a parent go back to the gym, go back to the mats, keep training after a bad week, learn a new skill before getting good at it, that kid is absorbing something no lecture could ever teach them. The lesson was never about being perfect. It's about being willing to come back. That's the whole lesson. And kids learn it by watching, not by being told. I can't imagine that beavers ever negotiate with their feelings. I don't think they sit by a half-finished dam having a crisis about whether they feel like working today. They just work. Beavers focus on the next stick, not the entire dam. My cousin's looking at an entire flooded road. Yeah, a road. That's how bad the water got. And the beaver was just looking at the next branch. Somehow that beaver just accepted reality too. When the dam got blown up, I seriously doubt he was sitting around complaining about the injustice of dynamite. It just adapts and then gets back to work. Progress for a beaver is incremental. One stick, one branch, one trip, one day. And for a person, that translates to one class, one workout, one conversation, one small improvement. So what's the dam you're trying to build right now? Better health, better parenting, a stronger marriage, a black belt, a business that actually retains clients? Is it greater confidence? What is it for you? That's a question, but then the real question is this. What would happen if you stopped measuring success by whether the dam is currently standing and started measuring it by whether you're still willing to go back out there and rebuild it? Because that's the whole secret. The beaver doesn't win because it's stronger than the man with the shovel. It wins because it shows up again tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. Confucius is credited with the idea that it doesn't matter how slowly you go as long as you don't stop. The next time life knocks down something you've spent months or years building, I want you to think about a flooded road outside of Ottawa and a beaver that would not quit. The goal was never to avoid the rebuild. The goal is to become the kind of person who picks up the next stick. Every single time. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who's going through a rebuild right now. And if it didn't, that's fine. Come back when we launch another episode. After all, trying again was totally what this episode was all about. So you know the beaver would come back. This has been a Campsall Broadcasting production.
Nice beaver.
Thank you. I just had it stuffed.